The wind had a voice that night. It moved like a whispering shadow across the empty streets, shaking shutters, tugging at old signs, carrying the smell of snow and smoke. Only the faint glow of streetlights cut through the darkness, casting long, trembling reflections on the ice. Somewhere deep in the storm, a single wooden house huddled against the cold. Its chimney sent a thin ribbon of smoke into the gray sky, like a fragile signal that life was still inside. Margaret sat by the fire, her knitting resting on her lap, fingers moving almost on their own. The storm pressed against the walls, rattling windows and bending tree branches, but she barely noticed. Her gray hair was pinned back, her eyes soft but steady, as if they could see the world better than she could hear it. She had lived through winters harsher than this one, but tonight felt lonelier. Her husband had been gone for years, her children far away, and the silence of her house had grown heavy with absence. She whispered a prayer not for herself, but for anyone caught in the storm's grip, that they would find warmth, shelter, and safety. The knock came without warning, sharp against the door, startling her so that a stitch dropped from her knitting. She hesitated, heart hammering, uncertain if she should even answer. Outside, the blizzard tore through the night, snow striking the glass in a relentless rhythm. When she opened the door, the sight made her catch her breath. 15 men stood there, tall and broad, wrapped in leather jackets marked with a name whispered in fear: Hell's Angels. Their beards were white with frost, their faces red and raw from the cold, boots sunk deep into the snow. Behind them, motorcycles leaned together, chrome glinting faintly under the muted light. They looked every bit the legends people told stories about, but Margaret saw something else: shivering bodies, tired eyes, lips blue with cold. Vulnerable human beings caught in the storm, and for the first time she did not see danger, only need. "Come in before you freeze," she said softly. Her voice carried no hesitation, no fear. The men blinked at her, most would have slammed the door, judged, or ignored. But this tiny woman, frail and quiet, was opening her home without hesitation. They stepped inside, snow crunching under boots, filling the room with the weight of their presence. The small living room, once silent and still, now pulsed with life. Margaret moved quickly, pulling bread from the cupboard, warming canned soup, stirring leftover stew. She set plates on the table, ladled food into bowls, filling mugs with steaming coffee. The men sat awkwardly, unsure, towering over the floral couches, their usual confidence softened by exhaustion. They were not used to kindness. They were not used to being seen as people in need rather than men to fear. Hours passed in quiet conversation, the storm hammering the house like a wild animal outside. The bikers told fragments of their story, traveling from state to state, caught unprepared, with motels full and roads closed. Margaret listened, eyes gentle, voice calm, laying blankets over frozen shoulders, pouring hot coffee into trembling hands. One by one, the rough men fell asleep in quilts scented with lavender and memory, their snores echoing across the room. Margaret stayed awake long after, watching them, feeling a warmth she hadn't felt in years. For a night she had 15 sons of her own. Morning broke with the storm spent, leaving the world sparkling under fresh snow. The men rose slowly, stretching, murmuring thanks. Breakfast was simple: scrambled eggs, toast, coffee, but shared with genuine gratitude. Outside, their motorcycles were half buried but intact. The leader, a tall man with steel gray eyes, stopped before leaving. "Ma'am," he said quietly, "we won't forget this ever." Margaret smiled, brushing a hand over his arm, wishing him safe travels. Then the rumble of engines faded, and silence returned. Margaret thought that night would be a memory, a story tucked away in her heart. She was wrong. The next morning, a low hum reached her ears, growing louder, shaking the snow from the trees. Margaret's heart lifted and thudded with disbelief. Down the long road, one by one, motorcycles appeared. Not 15, not 50, but 100, lining the street until her little house was surrounded. Riders in leather jackets, engines roaring, lights glinting on snow and chrome. Neighbors peeked nervously from windows, unsure what was happening, but Margaret felt something different, something like home. The leader dismounted first, walking slowly toward her with a hand outstretched. He held a bouquet of flowers, impossibly bright in the winter morning. "We told the brothers what you did," he said. "You gave us shelter when no one else would. We don't forget things like that." Then others came forward, unloading groceries, firewood, blankets, boxes of supplies. Some carried tools to fix fences, shovel snow, repair squeaky doors. Margaret watched, overwhelmed, as her quiet home became alive again, buzzing with laughter, movement, and the steady pulse of human care. That day, Margaret learned a truth she had always known but had never fully seen: kindness returns in ways we cannot imagine. The heart she had warmed returned to her tenfold, not out of obligation, but from gratitude, from recognition of dignity, from quiet honor. The bikers, once feared, showed the softness behind the leather, the loyalty behind the tattoos, the humanity behind the reputation. As the sun dipped low, engines revving in unison, they gave her a final salute, a thunderous farewell echoing across the valley. Margaret stood on her porch, tears in her eyes, and for the first time in years she did not feel alone. Somewhere out there she had family, not of blood but of heart, not bound by law but by trust, care, and kindness. If this story touched you, take a moment now, like the video if it moved you. Share it with someone who needs hope. Subscribe for more stories that quietly remind us of the power of human connection. And in the comments, leave one word "seen," because sometimes just being seen is enough to change a life. The wind outside had calmed, the streetlights glowing softly. Inside, Margaret's house hummed with warmth. Her hands, though old, had opened the door to more than visitors, they had opened the way for kindness to come home. And in that calm, quiet moment, she smiled, knowing she would never truly be alone again. This is crafted to maximize viewer retention. Cinematic hooks, emotional peaks, pauses, quiet tension, and a calm, satisfying ending that naturally leads into the CTA. If you want, I can also create a scene-by-scene shot list for this story, so it's ready for a high-quality cinematic YouTube video with visuals and packing cues.